Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Maitri and I'm very passionate about develops and I'm learning to be a better GM, a better player and a better person, and I want to share with you some of the cool stuff that I've been learning. Today I want to talk about something we say all the time in the tabletop space, which is the GM is a player too. It's a good sentiment, and I think we all definitely want to be like good players who enable that. But most of the time, I think we don't actually actively do all that much to support it, and it ends up being just kind of these meaningless platitudes of comments. Some like no prep. I really don't like that. So like this video is about changing that, because if we really believe the GM is a collaborator, a human being at the table, then our behavior should reflect that. I want to talk about stuff that I've been doing that I hope lands well, but at the very least lets my GM know that I appreciate them. Because I'm a GM and I try to show up with intention, so I know that like behind every amazing game, behind every heart-wrenching NPC, behind like every thrillingly stressful encounter, is a game master running on like very little sleep, a whole lot of caffeine, Google Docs, and sheer willpower. So if you've ever had a great session, and I'm willing to bet you've had multiple as a player, this one's for you. So let's get into three intentional, actionable ways to support and appreciate the player, the person behind the screen. Number one, mention specifics, not just good game. We've all said great game, thanks for earning, and that's for sure better than nothing. But I think we can do better, like with a little bit more effort. Was the banter with the shopkeeper hilarious? Was the tension in the dungeon like legit stressful? Tell them. Be specific. This tells your GM a couple of things. First, that their effort was noticed. Second, what's working, and that'll fuel their creative fire for next time. And in a roundabout way, that they've got really strong instincts, which is a skill that people sort of try and develop subconsciously. It costs nothing and it builds that sacred kind of GM player feedback loop we all thrive on and say we want. That appreciative feedback becomes fuel to affirm their instincts and gives them clarity about what makes things click for you and for the table as a whole, but you specifically. Number two, check in after the session. Here's a reality we don't talk about enough. Many GMs burn out quietly. Most don't say a word for a myriad reasons, not least of which is often compounded by the feeling of like not wanting to let your friends down, not wanting to let anyone down. But one day they kind of just stop running games. So if we really believe that GMs are players too, they deserve the same emotional check-ins that you would give any other member of the table. And it doesn't need to be complicated. Just letting them know that you give a shit. So send a low pressure message after your session, hey, how are you feeling about the campaign? Anything you would like me or us to kind of do differently next session to make it smoother for you, that kind of thing. These check-ins basically allow your GM permission to be a person and not just a facilitator of your game. Whether they're feeling drained or delighted, you've made space for humanity. Whether or not they take you up on it, and even if they don't really want to share, it's super important to let your GM know that they have that space to just be a person, not just a storyteller. It's just aftercare, that's how you build campaigns that last, not just in story arcs, but in emotional sustainability. Everyone needs to know that their time at the table is meaningful, and this includes GMs too. Number 3, be prepared and present. This one's a bit of tough love. Show up like their time matters. Did they send you a recap or did they ask you to level up before the session? Do it. Are you always late or distracted at the table? Fix it. Also, this one, I promise that, your GM is not the only one who notices, and your distraction may be disruptive to other players. Number 3, did you promise certain details and never deliver? Maybe you need to deliver. More than likely, they're able to kind of just manage, we're all smart enough and capable enough to just, deal with it. But, if you want to show up and be, a good player, this is the kind of thing that will make a quantifiable impact. Being present, being attentive, being prepared, it's not about perfection, it's not about being like a teacher's pet, it's about respect. We are all adults with a billion competing priorities, and your GM has decided that you are one of theirs and is investing time and creativity outside the session to elevate your experience. Meeting them halfway is a baseline of a healthy collaborative game. Your GM isn't a content machine. They are a person offering you their ideas, their labor, and sometimes their vulnerability. So if you've ever been moved by a session, tell them. If they look tired, ask just to make sure everything's okay, because they are your friend. If you love the game, show up like it matters and that you do. Obviously, if you have debilitating accessibility issues with health or mental, I'm not going to speak to navigating that, but if you need certain allowances, and certainly I do, you owe it to your table and to your GM to let them know as best as you can. I regularly need allowances for my speech or the speed at which I can do things because of the ataxia, but people around me are usually incredibly kind and want to help if given the chance. Hopefully that's true for you too. I have a lot of players at my table who have said to me that they're diagnosed with autism and with ADHD. For those players, I really try to show up in a way that is comfortable for them. It's not gonna bother me if you have a cookie clicker or a game in the background or music or whatever. If it lets you stay focused on the game that we are here to play, because that's the point. The point is, this is task. This is your primary task for the next 2 hours. And whatever you need to do to be able to be present for that time. There's a reason I don't play with kids. I don't, I have certain expectations of how I want to show up at the table as a GM and as a player, and I'm comfortable making those expectations known, but I wouldn't do that with kids. Like, I'm really not comfortable doing that with kids. Maybe you are. Maybe you have kids at your table and things need to be managed differently for them. I am not talking about kids. I am talking about adults. Again, you don't have to be perfect. None of this is about being perfect. It's just about being intentional and fucking trying and just making an effort. That's really all it is. And that's where I could close out. At the end of the day, your GM is not just a narrator or a rule adjudicator, they're a collaborator. As you said, and as we all say, the GM is a player too. They are a human being offering up a piece of themselves and their time just like you are. So let's start treating that effort like it matters. That's how we create safer, stronger, and more joyful tables. Tables that everybody wants to be at. Anyway, if you like this video, consider subscribing. But if you don't like notifications or subs, I do have a backlog of stuff. And I also have an audio only podcast with transcript and a written blog if that's better for you from like an app accessibility perspective. I'm also on a couple of APs. Links to all that in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for hanging out. Come see me again soon. Bye.